Hi everyone, and welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. I'm here with Ray Hartjen, who is an author and a musician, and we're here to talk about his books. So, Ray, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Teddy. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Great. No, it's good to have you. Now, you've written your book, Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. So could you just give us a bit of a background into why you wrote that book?
Yeah, that's my second book, Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. It's a book that, well, first of all, multiple myeloma is a blood cancer, a relatively rare blood cancer, quite rare enough for my liking. And I was diagnosed with that in 2019. I had the privilege of being, interviewed soon after my diagnosis for a couple of different reasons. But, with those interviews and with those videos, I had people reaching out to me, patients from around the world, asking, about my treatment and my diagnosis and how it might relate to their diagnosis. It still continues to be the biggest honor of my life to communicate with other multiple myeloma patients. But it was done on a one-to-one basis. And I was just, wondering, how could I scale this up and make it a one for many? And so that came up with the idea of Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma, a cancer patient memoir. I don't think it's not just a cancer book. I don't want it to be viewed as that. I like to think of it as a living book, right? And it's a book of a lot of different things, but certainly one of it's a book of hope. And I very much wanted to write this book, like I said, to scale up my interactions with cancer patients and cancer patient caregivers and cancer patient allies. But I also wanted to do it in a very authentic way and make it a book, by the community, to the community, and for the community. And for that reason, I made it a fundraiser for the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation. All my net writers' proceeds for the book benefit the MMRF. And so it's a book that I'm proud of. It came out in July, the paperbacks in July of 2024. The book I'm proud of and happy to speak to.
Brilliant. I mean, so writing a biography in itself, and especially given the circumstances, must have been like quite an intense process, I guess. What was it that inspired you to write it in this format?
Yeah, it's certainly a bit of excuse me, Teddy. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
It certainly was an introspective journey, but then I found that my fight with cancer was very introspective to begin with. Prior to my diagnosis in March of 2019, I lived in kind of a little bit of a bubble, as it related to any serious health concerns for myself and for those around me. And I certainly lived in a bubble as it related to cancer. And, I didn't really, cancer wasn't really kind of part of my life. And then all of a sudden, I got diagnosed as it was a shock. I got diagnosed from a routine blood test, basically. A regular CBC test came back, a complete blood count, and then came back and I was a little anemic. And so, trying to find the source of my anemia led me down a path of multiple months, multiple blood tests, more sophisticated blood tests, and then a very painful bone marrow biopsy that then gave me the diagnosis of multiple myeloma. And so it came as kind of a shock to me because I felt healthy. I wouldn't be going to the doctor. Even today, I wouldn't be going to the doctor if I didn't have cancer, right? So I felt perfectly fine. In retrospect, I can think back and say, well, I was kind of fatigued. But, at the time I was 54 years old, married, had a full-time job, 2 kids in private, expensive private universities. Give me a break, man. I should have been fatigued, right? You know what it's like being a parent. You
Yeah.
get tired. When I got diagnosed, I approached that, man, this is a fight. And I write in the book about, different patients have different approaches. Some people will talk about a journey with cancer, and they like to take away the combative nature of it because, if it's a combative type of metaphor that you use, well, then, it's said that there's a winner and a loser. And there's certainly no loser in a patient thing. I mean, and I recognize that. But for my personality, I like the metaphor of a fight against cancer. And when I jumped into being a cancer patient, I was fighting with everything I had. And based on my past experience as an athlete, as a musician, as a worker, as a student, whatever, I'd always led up to sort of a capstone event. It was either, an exam date or a presentation date, a work deliverable, a gig, a contest. There's always a fight night or a game day coming up, right? And that's how I was kind of approaching, dealing with cancer. And it lasted 2 weeks, Teddy. I was sitting at dinner with the family on a Friday night, actually a little less than 2 weeks, sitting at a restaurant, and I was just exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, just exhausted. And I realized that, man, I needed to change my approach. And so, getting back to your original question, this introspective thing, my journey with cancer was just one introspective journey to the other. I recognize that there is no game day or fight night, that every day is game day or fight night. It's a process. I have a chronic disease. It's incurable. So it's living with it every day, right? So what can I do to sustain that? And I recognized soon after that Friday night, sitting at a restaurant and just not even being able to read the menu, that my whole being is my physical being, my mental being, my emotional being, my spiritual being. And it's sort of like levels in a recording studio on a mixing board. It's like, one of those can lift the others, but one of them can also drag down the others, and that gave me, new insight for me. And, when I couple things like that, and I have a lot of examples like that to my journey with the things that I've learned through my cancer patient support group, it just, I felt as though when I needed a helping hand, there were people back there that were reaching and pulling me forward. And I feel good and I feel strong and I have a responsibility, I feel, to my community. When I'm like that and others need a little help forward, I need to be that person that reaches back and pulls them forward. And, again, me, myself, and my multiple myeloma, this book, is my attempt to scale that effort up to a one to many. It's like, if you need help, I want to be the person here to be one of the people there to help you move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an amazing story. I mean, because obviously you're writing about yourself and these issues you've had. What was your process like for getting that story down on paper? Because this is writing a biography like this is slightly different to writing a novel or a self-help book or something like that, where you're trying to get to a particular outcome or you're trying to get the story to a particular point. If you're writing a biography or in this way, I'm guessing you're writing much more about things that have happened to you. So did you have an approach to getting that structure down and getting the book written?
Yeah, it's I think it's a lot easier. You don't
Yeah,
have
maybe.
to you don't have to have your three
Just go through your
acts,
diary.
outlined out, and where's these points of conflict and so forth. For me, writing the memoir was a very organic type of process. It's a collection of relatively short chapters of the book, and it's just on one topic at a time. One topic, for example, would be the speaking about losing hair. And going through treatment and the medicines that causes one of the side effects is losing hair, and how I dealt with that and how I prepared to deal with that. But also just exploring and relating stories of people I know that also face this in maybe a different way, and my learning along the way. In my cancer patient support group, there's actually a neighbor of mine. She lives. I didn't know her before the group, but she lives across the street and 4 houses down. And she's been a long time a cancer patient, and she's running out of therapies to take. And she has one available to her and has had one available to her for a long time, but it's going to almost undoubtedly cause her to lose her hair. And she doesn't want to lose her hair. And it's a therapy that, once she starts, she really can't stop. So she's going to be, hairless for forever. And,
Yeah.
she does not want to do that. And I always thought, before I had cancer, before I had to deal with things like that, it's like, what? I mean, you have a treatment that will save your life or prolong your life. Why won't you do it? But, it's different for a woman. I've learned, you talk to them, it's, if a man doesn't have hair, it could be for a whole bunch of reasons, from fashion and style to hereditary or what have you, and it's, as society, you kind of look at them as just being normal. But if it's a woman without hair, then you immediately fall into like, oh, she must be sick. There's a reason for it. And, cancer patients, a great deal of them don't want to have that stigma with them. They don't want the first thing that people to think about is, your disease. And, our disease as patients certainly are part of us, but it's not the only part of our identity. So now I can relate to her, just a lot better. But, for me, the stories are, kind of easy to come about, because I can just pick up a topic and explore it, a topic about being disabled, a topic about, some of the things that cancer has given me. And I think that's one of the things that I think surprises some readers. We tend as a patient community to think of cancer, any serious illness, as something that takes something away from you as a person. And there are some things like that. You have to adjust to a new normal, and some things are not the same. But when I think back to where I was before March 11th, 2019, I was a husband, a father, a son, a brother, an employee, a bandmate, a boss, all these different roles I had, Teddy. And with each one of those roles, I had accountabilities and goals and responsibilities and things I wanted to achieve. And you know what? On March 11th, 2019, when I got diagnosed, I was still a father, a husband, a son, a brother, a boss, a bandmate, and all I had all those same roles, and I still had those same things I wanted to get accomplished. But I have new ones now too. In the last 5 years, I'm now a fundraiser for the MMRF and other cancer charities. I'm a cancer patient advocate. I've added new roles. Cancer has given me an opportunity to add meaning to my life, particularly changing my focus from, maybe all about Ray to being in service with others.
Yeah, of course. And another string to your bow is you're also now a writer as well. So it's something that you might not have even done had you not gone down this journey.
Absolutely. I was, I've always, maybe not always been a writer, but I've always been a storyteller throughout my career. And being in marketing, I've created, more than my share of marketing collateral content. But, being a musician, I'm always looking for a little saying to put on the back of a T-shirt so we can make more money at gigs. And soon after being diagnosed with cancer, I did an exercise that I as a facilitator, have facilitated this exercise for hundreds of people, and it's a basic timeline exercise. And if you're unfamiliar with it, Teddy, and you listeners out there as well, it's really quite a simple introspective exercise. You just take a blank piece of paper. Actually, you don't need a piece of paper. You can do it in your mind. And you just draw a horizontal line from left to right across the paper or in your mind. And the far left-hand side, you make a tick mark, a hash mark. Far right-hand side, you do the same thing. So that the hash mark on the end of that timeline that you drew, that represents your birth. And then the right-hand side, that represents your death. And then you just kind of take a moment and think, where do you feel that you are on your timeline? And so for years, Teddy, as I facilitated that for other folks as part of a goal setting exercise, I'd just like haphazardly throw a line right down the middle. And, I was going to live forever, Teddy. I was going to at least be 100, when I got diagnosed with cancer and I revisited this exercise for myself, not for others, I thought, I'm a lot further to the right than maybe I have put myself down in the past. I don't know. None of us know. Tomorrow's not promised for any of us, but, I'm a little further to the right. So that led me to believe in if not now, when. There's things I want to get accomplished. And, that led, I actually used those words with the co-author of my first book, Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. My buddy Tom, for years, had talked about this story about how the city of Pittsburgh had to go through a deindustrialization transformation. And, they came out, the other side of it as a new economy success story for a city. Yet there's so many of their Rust Belt cousins in the United States, like Cleveland, Detroit, continue to struggle. What's the difference? For him, it was the hometown football team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, he had this idea, this thesis in his mind, but he's not a writer. So he didn't know how to get started, really. 25 years worth of rolling around in his mind. And so I just, said, Tom, I'm a writer. If not now, when? Let's get started. Let's do this. So if not now, when? That led to, writing our first book, which has been, successful and doing well and a source of pride for me. And that led into writing Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma, and I've written two other books since Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. So you're absolutely right, Teddy. It's cancer's added book author as a role, and I have accountabilities and goals and objectives I want to achieve from that, and also that motto, if not now, when, has evolved to punch today in the face. That's one I like to use with cancer patients. It's today's a gift, man. Not everybody received the gift of today, right? So, how do we honor those that didn't receive the gift? How can we honor ourselves? How can we honor the day? Let's use it up and seize it for all the opportunity it has. And where punch today in the face came from was, I just wanted to get to today's attention. I want today to know that Ray Hartjen was here. And what way grabs your attention more than anything else? Well, if you've ever been punched in the face, that kind of gets your attention. Bam. So I want to grab today's attention, and when I'm laying in bed tonight, I also want to look over at tomorrow and kind of give a point to it and say, hey, I'm coming for you next tomorrow.
So talking about making the most of the day, obviously when you write a book, you can't do everything yourself. So did you get any outside help? For example, did you have someone to ask you questions whilst you're writing it, or did you get someone to do any editing or ghostwriting for you whilst you're writing the book?
Yeah, I did all the writing. There was no ghostwriting. It certainly was an editor. My editor is Courtney Donaldson, and I gave her the manuscript when it was done. It's always difficult, as you know, Teddy, to have an editor take a look at things, because you think you got it, you think you got it pretty good after all the rewrites and all that.
There's a lot of red pen.
Yeah, and you're thinking there's not going to be there's hardly anything for you to do, Courtney. And then it comes back and there's red everywhere. It's like, oh,
yeah.
It's a humbling experience. The questions I had prompted to me were really questions that I receive over social media from other patients. Part of this process of this decision-making process to write this book was these people reaching out to me and asking me questions, and so that was very helpful. And it's because these patients very organically asking me what they wanted to know gave me an impetus for these are things I should talk about. So that was very helpful. It's funny, I don't think I've really articulated that before in other interviews. No one's asked me that question. So, but yeah, I have to give it up to the worldwide patient community for reaching out to me, because those questions that they ask, very directly led to me deciding what are the things that I want to talk about in the book. And so, that was very helpful. And then, just sharing drafts with people. I call them my street team. It's what we used to do in music before the internet. Before the internet, you get your street team out and they go out and hang up banners on telephone poles and things like that. Same type of thing here, but now we do it digitally through social media and book reviews and the like. And so giving that drafts and letting those individuals take a look at it, provide feedback, which is sometimes you have to draw it out of them because these are people that are close to you, and sometimes it's very difficult for them to give constructive feedback. And it's great, it's awesome. It's like no, seriously, like what are things I can improve upon? So going through that process, professional editing process, that can be humbling. I want to call maybe it's painful. It's like, oh man, it's certainly an ego, downward. It's like, oh man, I thought I had things at a high quality level. It turns out I just had it at a level. It wasn't that quality at all. But yeah, those were all helpful aspects. And then, turning the book over, Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma is published by Morgan James Publishing. And so being able to, work with their design team, I think, some of your audience who might be in the process of, working on their first book, interior design is something that I had never even thought about before I wrote my first book, Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. They talked about the interior design and the amount of time it would take to design the interior. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've already designed the inside. It's my words. It's my brilliant words. And it's like, no, it's not. There's a lot of thought that goes into just pagination, right? And always starting the first page of the chapter on the odd page, the page that looks up at you, not the back of a page. And orphans or widows, a couple of words that hang out on the end of a sentence that it result in the next page, and little transitional artwork between if you use section breaks between chapters. All this stuff was new to me, so relying on professional interior designers very helpful. All I have to do is provide feedback and come up with some ideas, as opposed to
Hmm.
actually going through and designing the inside of the book.
Yeah. That's interesting what you said earlier about people in your community, like the cancer community, who had asked you questions and that had impacted some of the stuff that had gone into the book. Were there any parts of those questions which changed the direction of the book or the way you wanted to take it?
Um, no, I don't think so. Because while I wanted to be of service to others, I needed things to be, true to myself, and topics that I thought were important, and things that I thought were, relevant to me, and there are, choices people make with their health care. Sometimes it's, they feel as though it's dictated to themselves, don't really have an advocate for themselves. So I certainly like to, to tell people that, as a patient, that, you need to be your advocate. And if you can't, for whatever reason, you need someone to be an advocate for you. You have an insight into directing your care. But there's also some people that just they don't they don't want to go through the process for a variety of reasons, and that's the decision that they make. That's right for them, right? It's not right or wrong. And so some of the things I would get. I've heard this from patients before. You find out who your friends are really quickly, and what that comes from are relationships that fray, and quite often they break upon a diagnosis. And I always like to, that's so maybe, to your question, this is one of those points where it's like, yeah, you find out who for me, I like to encourage patients to look at things a little bit differently here. Is that, quite often we as humans just don't know what to say, right? And I have been this person many times before. Like for me, it was with significant others. I once went to grad school with a woman. Her name's Therese, and geez, I forgot her husband's name even because of this story. Is a guy I enjoyed hanging out with, and I would see him socially, right? Tracy, I think his name was. And then, one time I see her at a party, and I'm like, hey, Therese, where's Tracy? And she just looks at me and kind of says, not here. I'm like, oh, there's trouble in paradise. They're no longer a couple, right? And that scarred me forever, man. That Teddy, I want to ask about any social domestic partners, spouses, people like that. I won't ask about them at all until you mentioned it first, because I didn't want to put myself in that awkward situation again. And I think we all know examples of people, like, hey, when are you expecting? It's like, well, I'm not pregnant. It's like, so, that once happened, not to me directly, but I was standing right there on the spot, party at my house. And a woman I was talking to, another woman comes up to her and says, hey, well, when are you expecting? And she's like, I'm not expecting. And that scarred me.
Oh,
I was just listening to the conversation. And so I would never ask questions about it. And so these are two examples about like, hey man, I don't know what to say. So it's better not to say anything at all. And sometimes as cancer patients, we think about it all from like our perspective. Like, man, I've got cancer. But I don't know what's going on in your life. So you have not called me. You know of my diagnosis from whatever reason, but you haven't called me. That doesn't mean you don't care. You've got other stuff going on in your life. I don't know what that is. And also, maybe you just don't know what to say, right? And I think I would have been in that case, prior to my diagnosis. If someone's, close to me and I don't know what to say, so I'll call them tomorrow. I'll figure it out. And then tomorrow leads to the next week, and then leads to the next month, the next year, and then you find out who your friends are, and I'm like, give them a bit of a break, maybe they're not friends of yours, right?
mm,
But they were friends of yours at one time, right? And there must have been a reason for that. So, give them a break. And it's a difficult conversation. And you know what? It's every bit as difficult for the patient to say something like, hey, Teddy, yeah, we haven't spoken in a while, and I don't really know what that reason is, but I'm hoping that maybe we can get to this, maybe a difficult, 15, 20, 30 seconds, and then we get back to, our friendship. And that's exactly the same type of thing I recommend to people who don't know what to say to the patient. Geez, Teddy, I don't know what to say.
yeah,
So I want to start there, and hopefully we can kind of work this out together, because I want to be there. I love you. I care for you. And I want to be supportive of you.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess the book doesn't, those questions that I got out in social media and the like, things that I hear from other patients and support groups, guide what are the messages that I want to give.
Yeah. Did you find that once you started writing the book, that more people who maybe you hadn't spoken to in a while wanted to speak to you about like the book itself?
Yeah, and and if they read the book, I kind of give them permission. It's like, yeah, if you haven't spoken out, that's fine, man. That's you, and it's okay. And I'm doing my thing, and that's okay too. But if you ever do want to reach out to me. And of course, nothing stops me from not reaching out and talking to people that I haven't spoken to in a while either. It's just not, if you want to connect with people, you just don't sit back and wait for the phone to ring. The phone works both ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were people that, that like, hey, I just didn't know. I just spoke to a good friend of mine last week, and we hadn't spoken in years. And part of it was, he has now been diagnosed with cancer, prostate cancer, and he feels guilty that he didn't reach out to me. And even as a patient, and a new patient, I'm like, dude, it's fine, it's okay, man. You have stuff going on. I've got stuff going on, and don't feel guilty about it. Let's celebrate the fact that we've connected today. And let's talk about you and how I can be of service to you.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when it came to your books, like this book and also your other book, about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, what did you have any particular approach to getting the word out there about the books? Did you do any particular marketing tactics which really helped?
Yeah, excellent questions. In today's publishing, world, writers are responsible for the marketing and promotion of the books. And unless your name is Stephen King or something like that, particularly in the nonfiction area, a large publishing house will publish nearly 20,000 nonfiction books a year. When you think
Yeah.
about that, it's like that's a staggering number of books. And that's just from a large publishing house. That doesn't include all the self-publishing and things like that. So it's definitely an aspect you have to do. At Morgan James Publishing, the publisher of 3 of my 4 books, the founder of that company, David Hancock, was his mentor was Jay Levinson, the guerrilla marketing guy. And they've created a lot of guerrilla marketing books together, including guerrilla marketing for authors, for writers. And a lot of those marketing techniques are free. But the basic foundation of guerrilla marketing as relationships. Don't worry about books sales. You'll get to that. Build a relationship first. Get customers that are just relationships. And when you think about that, the books will come. And the best way of selling books are word of mouth. I think product reviews is good for any product, and certainly for a book. And also reviews help trip algorithms, suggestive algorithms. So if we'll use Amazon for an example, with customers who looked at this also looked at that, or bought this also bought that. But you need reviews to trigger some of those. So it's really important when a book launches to have your digital street team that I referred to earlier. It's like you give them copies of the book and say, give me your authentic review. I don't like pandering for 5-star reviews. I think that's not authentic, and it doesn't help anybody in the long run. It's like, if I give you a book, Daddy, I want you to give me your authentic review. But it's helpful for other readers, right? And you try to get through on Amazon, particularly, you try to break through number 30, right? Another marketing tool that's really important is pre-orders, and getting the number
Okay.
of pre-orders out there. Particularly in the United States, we don't have a lot of big bookstores anymore, but the biggest bookstore would be Barnes and Noble. Barnes and Noble has locations throughout the country. And if you can get pre-orders above 300, that's a trigger to Barnes and Noble to put your book in all of its locations. Right. So
Right.
that's a number to shoot for. And that's difficult to achieve. Now, if you're Stephen King or, some well-established author who's going to sell millions of copies, that's not very difficult at all. I mean, you buy it out of trust. It's like, Teddy's got a book coming out. He's a superstar writer. I'm definitely pre-ordering it because the first day, it's going to be delivered to me. That doesn't work when the author's name is Ray Hartjen, right? You got to go out there and scramble for that, right? So during that pre-order window, what can you do to get pre-orders as high as possible? Which is kind of it's one of the things that an author might struggle with, because you also have books to sell, and there's no higher margin on a book than a book that you sell. This copy of Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma I'm holding in my hands, I mean, that cost me just a couple of dollars, but if I can sell it for $18, I'm making more money than I am through a retailer, where my royalties will be $1 or whatever. So I think for a lot of authors, it's, geez, I don't want to do pre-orders. I'd rather just sell books out of hand. That's a short-term approach, right? So book reviews are important, pre-orders are important, and then rounding up very consistent presence on social media, just spreading the word, trying to build communities with people, whether it's an Instagram community about you, the writer, or about the book. I basically have both on all my social networks. Like Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. There's a Facebook page for that book. There's a Instagram page for that book. So build the same with Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. So building a community through the book, or through you as an author, just engaging with your readers. There's one thing I really like, and I like this exploration aspect of it. There's a writer I know here in the States. His name is J.C. Hutchins. He's written a lot of things, and yeah, he's in the sci-fi type of aspect. But he has a serial called The 33 that he hasn't worked on lately. But I think there's two different 33 books. One of them has 4 parts. The other one is 3 parts. Now, these aren't like 4 books and 3 books. These are 4 parts of a single book. So he's inspired by comic books. And so what he does is write the first part of a 4-part book, put it available for sale for $1.99, knowing that it's a 4-part series. This is an $8.99 book, or what have you. But what I find interesting about this is that it relates to your previous questions. When you engage with your community, and the community can help direct maybe where the story's going, or give you immediate feedback. It's like, oh, I really like this. I can hardly wait for part 2 to come out, because I want to know what happens to this Ray character, or what have you. That's what I find fascinating about the serial aspect. If you have a type of book and the type of story that you can tell in parts, then you can, in a way, start collecting, feedback from your group, and have this dialogue with your community on what they want to see next, and maybe you reshape a bit of the story that's in your head. It's I think, a fascinating idea. I got to figure out how I can do it. I want to give it a try. I want to give it a try, whether maybe it's a piece of fiction or something like that. I am a songwriter. Those are too small of stories to tell. I mean, it's a 3-minute story, and a lot of it's repetitive, right? So, but if I can find a way that allows me to break up maybe a fictional story into 4 parts or something, I'm just fascinated by that idea.
Yeah, why not? It kind of leads on quite nicely to the next question, because I was going to ask if there's anything you do differently with writing your books next. So it sounds like you have learned some lessons, and you've learned at least what you'd like to do next. But was there anything you do differently in terms of the books you've already got out?
That's a good question, and maybe we'll certainly have a different answer later. As I write more, you need to write about what you know. I think that's important for every writer to know. So it's just going to be a lot easier. And so I have a book coming out in May. It's about the Indianapolis 500. It's called the Indy 500: Year-Long Quest to Win the Greatest Spectacle in Racing. And it's a book that I'm super excited about. And it's a book that I'm passionate about, because I'm passionate about the Indy 500. And I grew that passion out of reading a book when I was a kid. It was a chronicle of the 1970 Indy 500. And as a kid, I read this book, like 72 or something like that. It just captivated my imagination, and it ignited my passion for this event and for the sport. And I always wanted to update it, and so I think to update it, what I mean is talk about like a current year's race. So, my book is really a kind of like a year-long diary, so to speak, leading up to the Indy 500 that was run just a few months ago, that 108th running. And, I put that up there, because I wanted to go back, if you write about the things that you're passionate about, and that's, one of the things that I learned. If not, it becomes much more difficult. So I'm passionate about the Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma book, passionate about the Indy 500 book. Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh was not my passion project. That was my co-author's Tom's passion project. And, that was, I didn't know anything about Pittsburgh. I didn't know anything about the steel industry, for example. I knew, a bit about football, a lot about football and a bit about the Pittsburgh Steelers, but there's a lot of work that I had to do to be able to contribute to that book. And a lot of research where, me, myself, and my multiple myeloma it came about, pretty easy, because there were things I had to research. But, the book flowed for me because it was just coming, from something I was passionate about. So, as books come forward, I know that the things that I need to find other topics that I'm passionate about and knowledgeable about, just because it makes it more fun. And I think it makes for a better product, right? When you read something that, that the writer knows about or feels strongly about or feels passionately about, ideally all of them together, it comes across on the page. And, it's sort of like performing as a band, if the band's enjoying being together and playing, then, you feel it in the crowd. You enjoy being there and sharing the experience with them. And I think the same thing with the book.
Definitely, you can tell when people know their topic and they're passionate about it. I mean, you could, like, when you read, especially non-fiction books, where you can tell when someone knows what they're talking about or not just by looking at the pages. It's so obvious. Now with
and for budding writers out there, redefine what you think is a book, because the publishing industry's changed and books are no longer War and Peace. When Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh, first draft, 133,000 words. And the publisher, Morgan James, is like, it's too big. And we're like, well, you can't cut it because this is the story. And in fact, we weren't able to cut it very much. The final edit's about 130,000 words. But it is a big book. They worried about it. But when they were telling me about it, it's like, it's a big book. It might be difficult to sell. I actually had a copy of War and Peace, Tolstoy's War and Peace, on my desk. I'm like, this book's over 1,000 pages. And they're like, you know what? No one buys War and Peace anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like they don't. Bookstores want to sell paperbacks, not so much hardbacks. They want shorter books. And that you can have my third book is a B2B marketing book. It's called Revenue Orchestration and Today's New Era of B2B Sales and Marketing. It's like 18,000 words. It's a 90-minute read. Right. It is what some people call a short, helpful book. Right.
Yep.
It's one of those things that you have a very short airplane trip. You can flip through it and you're done by the end of your flight. And there you go. And so, listeners out there, don't think that you need to, writing the great novel or any book is, like a years long process where you're stuck away in an alcove on a beautiful cottage overlooking a pond or something like that. And you're just immersed in your book, but it takes a year. It doesn't, it takes about, 400 words a day for a half a year and you got yourself a pretty good book, right? So 400 words is not a lot per day.
No, I interviewed a guy called Mike Capuzzi from Bite Size Books, and he writes a lot about those short books, especially for people who want to use it for their own business and to grow their business. It's a really good idea. So check that episode out if you're interested more in that.
Yeah, Mike's a contact of mine as well. And we've talked about how if you are a business person and you have a pitch deck, you probably have a book, right? If it takes you an hour to kind of go through the deck at like a first call meeting with a prospective customer and show what you do and the value that it adds to them, that's you're getting right there into to book range as well. So think about that particularly for your business, because there's something about having a book that adds credibility, is that you're an authority in the space because you have a book. It doesn't need to be 1,000 pages of War and Peace. It can be 50 pages of Today's New Era and B2B sales and marketing.
Yeah, of course. Now, just for the last question, I just wanted to go back to this idea of writing books that are kind of biographical and about your own story, because I think it is quite different to some of the other people we've spoken to. So do you have any just short tips for people who are thinking about writing either their first biography about themselves or about someone else?
Yeah, you have to be honest. And sometimes you don't want to be, right, but if you are writing about yourself, you just can't paint it as a how great you are. It needs to be full frontal nudity for who you are as a person, and so that might be a bit of a challenge, but be honest with yourself because your readers are going to want to expect that, and so I think that's the thing that you might have to become more
Yeah,
comfortable with, warts and all, who you are,
yeah,
and not don't try to justify it. You just say what you are. The reader is intelligent, probably smarter than you are. So let's give them the things the way you see it. To let them, don't try to sell them into something about who you are, and share the story that you want to share, and hopefully they see it your way.
yeah. That's great advice. Well, thank you so much for this conversation today, Ray. It's been as you just said, it's been honest, it's been really helpful. I think it's going to give people some really good tips if they are looking at writing a biographical book, and also you're looking at some of those other ways of asking questions of themselves. I think it's really great to hear you talk about those things so clearly, and it's been really entertaining. So thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure, Teddy. Like I said at the very beginning, thank you so much for the opportunity. I love what you do, and I just appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you and share my point.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you so much. So if anyone people want to get in touch with you or follow you around the internet in any way they want to, what's the best way for them to do that?
Hey, that's a great question. I actually in my book, in the Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma book, I have my phone number and my email address. I learned that from an author, Southern California, named Bob Goff, who said, like, if you want to reach out to me, I want to hear from you. I am available on all the social networks. It's my name, Ray Hartjen. With the exception of TikTok, for whatever reason, I'm Ray Hartjen 5. I think my sausage fingers pushed too many keys when I did it. But my website is also my name, Ray Hartjen, RayHartjen, and that's my email address at Gmail, rayhartjen@gmail.com.
Great.
I would love to hear from you if there's any way I could be of service to you, particularly if you are a cancer patient caregiver, just a cancer patient ally. If there's any way I can be of service to you, I would be humbled and honored at the same time to be able to do so. So, please reach out to me.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Ray. That's really helpful. I wonder if there's 4 other Ray Hartjens on TikTok just waiting.
Yeah,
Just
I am Ray Hartjen the third, right? But I'm pretty sure my dad's not one of them. My 84-year-old dad's, but my son, who happens to be a Ray Hartjen the fourth. But yeah, I think I think I just, brain fade and just type it in with my fat fingertips and hit a number I don't need to hit.
yeah. Well, great. Well, that's super helpful. Put links to all that stuff in the show notes anyway, so people can just click on them. So just before we go, there's just one final question. And what's the one book that you recommend everyone should be reading?
Yeah, my favorite book. I have 2 favorite books. One's a fictional book, writer by the name of Andy Weir, who I believe self-published his very first book called The Martian, and turned out to be hugely successful.
Is
He
that
has
the
a
film?
movie.
The same book from
It's
the
the
film?
book behind the film, right?
Right.
And so he has this book called Project Hail Mary, which is I love that book as a fiction book. But the book that I recommend to everybody, it's available on my bookshop.org store, is Bill Bryson. He became famous as an author writing travel books. And I believe it was his first non-travel book. It's called A Short History of Nearly Everything. And to give you an idea of what this book is, as a travel writer, he's sitting in an airplane one day, 37,000 feet, looking out at this, wonderful planet of ours, just realizing I don't know anything about it really. I don't know anything about this planet. So he goes on a multi-year quest to learn about all the science, just little bits of it. So this is a pretty big book that delves into these fascinating people and these fascinating discoveries, scientific discoveries from everything from like space to geology. There's an example, that he gives of a guy who spent his entire career just studying St. John's Wort in London, or a priest in Australia who has this knack of looking into the sky as an astrologer and seeing things that he's never seen before and discovering supernova and stuff like that. A lot of them. It's just an amazing book. So I recommend that to everyone, whether you like science or not. particularly if you don't know much about science, you'll learn so much. And the way that
Yeah.
Bill Bryson writes, he's just a fabulous writer. I read almost everything about Bill Bryson.
Oh,
He has
amazing.
that wonderful Shakespeare biography.
Great book.
That is a great book. So a short history of nearly everything by Bill Bryson. Put it on
Fantastic.
your list if you haven't,
I will do,
read
yeah.
it already.
I've read it. I mean, for any Americans listening to this, you should also definitely read his Notes from a Small Island if you're ever coming to the UK, because it's a really funny book that encapsulates a lot about Britain. So if you are ever traveling here, then you should read it, because you'll understand what he's saying from an American's perspective.
I'm not familiar with that book. I'm going to check out that book. And
Oh,
then,
it's really
he
good.
also has a great book called, I think it's just called Home. And it's about, the things he's learned from owning an abbey in England. And you go again,
Yeah.
kind of very exploratory, I want to find out about grass. When do we start putting grass in our lawn and doing
Yeah.
things like that? It just, he's a great storyteller, great writer.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much. Looking forward to seeing your new books come out, and we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Teddy. You have a great day.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance podcast. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, let me tell you about Publishing Performance, the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but are not really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books. And if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximize your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalized ad account manager to create your ad campaigns, to choose your best keywords, and to make adjustments in real time. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure that your investment is being used effectively. And Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. Just go to publishingperformance.com to get started with Amazon ads for just $1. Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance podcast. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, let me tell you about Publishing Performance, the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but are not really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books. And if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximize your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalized ad account manager to create your ad campaigns, to choose your best keywords, and to make adjustments in real time. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure that your investment is being used effectively. And Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. Just go to publishingperformance.com to get started with Amazon ads for just $1.